A very warm welcome to the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show. And today's show is a guided missile which captures the life of a former rugby union international fullback and, of course, occasional wing player too. During his career, he played for Wakefield, West Hartlepool, Newcastle Falcons, Leicester Tigers, Perpignan, Leeds Tykes, and Nottingham. Not forgetting his international appearances for England. Wow, fantastic they were too. And the British and Irish Lions and the Barbarians. In particular, he excelled in a 5-year spell at Leicester Tigers between 1998 and 2003. As a goal kicker, he was an integral part of the dominant Leicester Tigers side that won the league 4 times in succession to add to the back-to-back Heineken Cup wins, also becoming the Premiership's top point scorer in the process. However, his points total has now been overtaken by both Johnny Wilkinson and Andy Goode. Yes, folks, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome on the show Tim Stimpson. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you, Lord Russell. What a great intro. Who's that guy?
Oh, I try my best. I'm sure it sounds familiar. I always try to give a good intro because it's a part of the show, isn't it? It's fantastic stuff. But as always, I start right at the beginning, Tim. Tim, in your early years, you were educated at Silcote School in Wakefield, and in 1992, you went to the University of Durham, where you studied anthropology at Grey College, graduating in 1995. So please tell us more about your school and university life. There must be some amusing stories to share. I know I did have some in my youthful days. So,
Well, yeah, I loved being at school, and I have to say that I think rugby and cricket gave me a lot of confidence that maybe dragged up my academic abilities. I got, great memories of even before then, even at mini school, that you get to wear the posh football jersey when it's a big league game, and you get changed in a shed, and you go out there thinking that you're playing for Leeds United or Liverpool, or whatever. Stories. I can remember being told off at school. I'd been off sick, I think, with a sore throat, and when I came back in for the school rugby tournament, and because I wanted to play rugby probably more than do English, so I got told off by the head of English, Mr. Lepedvin. He said, "Tim, you'll never earn a living from playing rugby. You really need to get your priorities right."
Ooh.
And we managed to win that our trophy. And it's one of my favourite days at school. And I did actually go on and play rugby, as you know, as you've said there in the intro. And there's also a message. I remember going to a Yorkshire trial. There was it's quite tricky to get picked for Yorkshire, big county. So you probably play 6 or 7 or 8 layers of trials. And I remember getting a lift with Wakefield. Had got another school, our rival school called Queggs. So the Silcotes boys and the Queggs boys went on a minibus. We went over to Featherstone. And I remember as I was getting off the minibus, it was Mr. Barker from Quegg said, "Oi, lad, are you going to effing bother turning up today or what?" And eyeballed me and challenged me. And I was really put out by that. I thought, wow, what does he think I am? I'm not a show pony. Hopefully I'm going to show him. And I remember, I did score a few tries on that windy rec field in Featherstone. I think I've always remembered his message. So whenever I needed to get motivated or think, oh, it's a big game, I better turn it on. I remember Trevor Barker, and I did see him down at Rosslyn Park even just a couple of years ago, and we laughed and joked about it, because these school teachers, they do have a big impact on your life.
Okay.
So yeah, so rugby was important, cricket was important at school. Went on up to Durham, and I suppose I was a northerner going to Durham, but it's sort of full of very rich southerners.
Wow.
So, when you first get there, you're a bit on the back foot that they've got cars and all this sort of thing. And but luckily I had rugby. So I turned up to the trials and got picked, up in the first team in my first year, where I played with people like Will Greenwood. And it was an amazing experience to be, you sort of work hard about 8 hours a week on the anthropology, and then you train every night like you're a pro. And the world evolved around your Wednesdays, playing for the university, and then playing against the local club sides on a Saturday. So yeah, I've only got loads of memories, happy times. One not quite so successful. I remember we lost in the semi-final of the University Cup, the UAU,
Mm.
um, and I got the score wrong. So another one of those messages and stories from my life. I thought we were 4 points down with 3 minutes to play. I'm actually playing. I think we played against Bristol at Welford Road back down in Leicester, and I tapped and went for the corner, thinking we had to get 5 points. Got tackled over the corner flag, no try, end of game. And my captain, a lad called Ben Fennell, just walked over to me almost in tears and just pointed up at the scoreboard. And, it's one of the worst moments in my rugby career. Because for those lads at Durham, that was their Twickenham, if you like. That was their big chance to go and win the University Challenge. So I've won a few games and lost a few games as we'll go through in this, I'm sure, in this interview. But
Definitely.
that's the sort of thing that can happen, and you try your best, and you don't know, it doesn't always come off.
Well, life's all about making mistakes, isn't it? Because we all learn from those mistakes. Hopefully, we learn. But life's all about making mistakes, isn't it? Really, and making you a better person. So you look back at that, as you just said, and you think, well, if only I'd looked at the scoreboard. And I'm sure now, when you were playing professional rugby, your eyes were well and truly kept on the scoreboard at key moments
Yeah, it's
through the
burned
matches.
inside. Like you said, that's a
Mhm.
horrible mistake to have made, but I didn't make it ever again.
No,
And
indeed.
you've got to learn from those mistakes. And I think when I'm coaching, I'm saying to the kids, don't be scared to make mistakes. I'd rather you
Yeah,
made mistakes and try things rather than come off and be too scared to try. So
yeah,
yeah, it's a big
quite agree.
lesson.
I mean, I remember you said just a little while ago that your school teacher said you'll never make any money at rugby. I mean, he probably has some sense in that and truth in that because going back, of course, rugby was always an amateur sport. There was no money, no professionalism as such in the game, was there? And fortunately, it all changed, which I'm sure you enjoyed.
And he was great. I respected, again, Mr. Pedvin for telling me and for
Mhm.
having his opinion. He was only doing the best he could for me to make me focus on not just sport, to try and get
Good.
my English A level sorted. And actually, yeah, rugby was amateur at that time. And
Yeah.
whilst I was at school, there was an approach from a rugby league team from Featherstone to say, does Tim want to come and play professionally? But I don't know, back to my family history, my granddad had been a professional soccer player, and he'd lost most of his like playing years while he was during the war. So
Yes.
I think we'd call it now a bit of mental breakdown, I think, but he was never able to have the life he wanted to give to his wife. So when I came along, it was never an idea that sport will be your savior. Sport
Yes.
is probably going to break you. So a bit scared of it. And then I think I also had a chat with my cricket master at school, Mr. Jackson, who'd been a former professional cricketer, and said, Tim, you could go and play cricket. You could go, you're good enough. So don't discredit that. No, don't. When you're talking about what you're going to do after school, you're going to go to university. But I was too scared to try to rely on sport in those days.
Mm,
Um, and my dad always said, you need a three-legged stool. You need to, invest in each leg, and they're your friends, your work life, and your sport life.
mm.
Which it basically meant I've got to get on there and go to university and
Yeah, good
carry on
advice.
developing my academic or professional skills, if you like. And then sport just carried on in the background.
Yeah, fantastic. Good advice from your father, for sure. Then, of course, your rugby union life started out at Wakefield Rugby Football Club, who sadly folded in 2004 as a result of poor finances. So please tell us more about your time at Wakefield Rugby Football Club, and of course, what made your decision, or who was influential at the time to start your rugby life at Wakefield Rugby Football Club, Tim?
Well, I've got to say, Wakefield wasn't my first club.
Okay,
Sandal, actually. So in Wakefield, there's a junior rugby club that's still there called Sandal, which is where we lived.
okay,
And my dad was the first team coach. So actually, I used to go down with him as a toddler, and that was my childcare. Was basically being, you're at the rugby,
okay.
your dad's playing, you
Yes.
watch the final score, you have a hot dog, you get the ball out of the field.
Brilliant
Um,
times.
if you're lucky, you're able to carry the flags out into the corners and maybe the plate of oranges. And so
Mhm.
yes, I was brought up by the rugby club on a weekend, and so naturally, on a Sunday morning, I think I was four for a few weeks when I first started playing for the under eights. So I went. So on Saturdays was watching dad. Sundays was me down there playing mini rugby until I was 15, 16, and then so I was playing at school then, and then I was able to go and play for the men's team down at Wakefield. That was College Grove. So we had some great players like Mike Harrison and Dave Scully and Brian Barley.
Hmm.
So it was known as the Dad's Army back in the day, and I was the young kid
Yes.
that was adopted by these great players.
Mm.
So I suppose that was I remember my godfather and my dad coming to watch me play those early games down at College Grove, playing for Wakefield, which was the first, if you like, the first. I think I played 1 or 2 games for Sandal Men midweek, and then I went down to Wakefield because that was still, in the Courage Leagues. It was a decent level of rugby, and it was
Yes.
a step up from playing schoolboy stuff.
Yes.
And I'd come back from university and play a little bit in the like the Christmas holidays and that sort of thing. So play a bit of first team stuff down there. And that was, there was a guy called Terry Garnett. So I don't know how honest we can be on this podcast, but pretty
I
honest.
think
So,
you'd be as honest as you like.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. He was one of those, and I'm still on the Wakefield All Boys WhatsApp group, but he was basically like a bully, as a big prop.
Yeah.
And he said, I think it was Christmas, and I was proud as punch. I got a really nice new coat. And I turned up and he went, "Oh, that's a nice coat." And I went, "Thanks very much." No, that's a nice coat. I'll have it. So he took my new coat off me.
Oh,
And, and I just remember thinking, well, that's it then. I can't fight with him. And then I went home and mum said, "Where's your coat?" And dad said, "Shh, just leave it." And at the end of the season, Terry gave him my coat back. And I think it was just one of those things that you're a student, you think you're something special,
mm.
pipe down. If I want to take your coat off you, I will do. And don't think you're special. And it was, I think, throughout your rugby career,
Yes.
you've always got to try and earn the respect of the forwards.
Yeah.
They're the boys doing all the work. They're the hard lads.
Mm.
And we really, as backs, we sort of take the mickey because we can read. It's harsh, but
Harsh.
but
Harsh,
it's
but true and
it's
fair too, I should
it's
say.
true. So there's always this tension between the backs and the forwards because the backs are show ponies. They take all the credit. They score the tries.
Mm.
They kick the goals, whatever. And the forwards are usually the ones doing all the graft. And so it's really important as a back that you earn the respect of your forward because without them, you're knackered. And that's always an important lesson to learn. When you're coming through as a junior.
Absolutely, and that level of rugby as well, you would also have played against some good players, but also some really poor players too, I should imagine. So it's a great learning curve, isn't it? Level of rugby. Probably some thugs in there that really couldn't play rugby properly, but were big, strong, hard, tough in the scrum, all the usual things you'd expect at union football.
Yeah,
Must have
it
been good
was it
stuff,
was
good
before
learning curve.
cameras, wasn't it? We didn't have,
Yeah.
fourth officials. You didn't have filming. I think a little bit, some of it went on to Rugby Special eventually, but it was never interfered with. It was down to the ref.
Yes.
And it was all about getting the ref on side and making sure that that was a very, very early lesson that, you give respect to the referee. There's no point in rugby in talking back to the ref
Mm.
because he'll just
No, indeed.
march you 10 yards and hate you for the rest of the game. And you're not going to win without the ref.
No, I quite agree.
Yeah.
And of course, going back in the day as well, the scrums were tough, weren't they? You often ended up with players with the quality cauliflower ears, as they were well known. You don't see that these days, do you? It's very soft in the approach now in the scrums, isn't it? So the game's changed quite a bit.
No, no, it's not soft. You can't say that. I mean, we used to have this big thing where the forwards, it would just be a battle. They'd
Mm.
for a scrum, they'd sort of smash into each other,
Yeah.
and that was ferocious and obviously dangerous. But somehow
Mm.
those front row boys loved it, and they just wanted to smack each other, punch
Yeah.
each other, gouge each other, and then get pissed with each other. And that's
And that's what I mean by soft. Didn't mean it in terms
yeah.
of the game soft. It was just it's changed a lot. Not as hard, really, in the approaches it used to have. Well, I preferred the old game. Well, it was brilliant.
Yeah, well,
Really did.
I think there's a difference because when, it was a game for everyone, wasn't it? And everybody had to go to work. There wasn't really there weren't any professionals when I was playing. There was a few lads, let's say, worked in the military that maybe didn't have to do a lot of fighting on the front line,
Mm.
provided they did well playing for the cavalry or playing for their battalion and then playing for the army or the navy. There was some lads that were school teachers that could probably coach all day and get away with it. But most of the lads had a trade. And so I think looking back, they were very brave to put themselves on the line.
Mm.
But they couldn't train with the intensity that the boys can now because they'd always have to go to work the next day. So it was one of those where you turned up on a Tuesday and a Thursday, did a bit of line outs, did a bit of handling, maybe a little bit of team prep, and then you just kept it all ready for the weekend.
Mm.
Whereas obviously as a pro, you're going in at sort of 7 o'clock on a Monday morning, and
Mm.
they've got you all week, and you're paid to eat and sleep, really,
Yeah,
and then make sure you perform. For me, especially at Welford Road, in front of that crowd.
absolutely right. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely right. You then left Wakefield Rugby Football Club to play for West Hartlepool. So was it different there? Tell us more about your time at West Hartlepool. Interesting move.
Well, yeah, because I'd gone up to Durham, and then
Mm,
so Hartlepool's not far geographically, and I could still study and do my third year at Durham, and then go and play Courage One, like
yep.
first division rugby, which is where I needed to be to test myself against better players. So Hartlepool was brilliant. We had a guy called Frank Dick who'd been the Great Britain athletics coach. So
Wow.
the first time I sort of trained properly, and he'd give you training programs, and he'd make you run bare feet for speed work, and we'd go down to Loughborough University and do all that sort of testing and weightlifting. So we had a really fit attitude, and if you're in the northeast, you've got a sense of humour.
Mm,
So we still had the characters. So we had Stubbs and Stabler. So Stabler was the fly half detective, local copper. Stubbsy was the old gnarly sort of Columbo type character that was the coach.
yep.
And they'd look at us and say, "Hey, I want you to go and play with spotty arrogance," just because we were students and we were, naive,
Mm,
and were just up for it. And then he'd be thrown in with all these battle hardened pros. We had Rob Wainwright was brought down from Scotland. We had Australian internationals, Kiwi internationals, and real, real hard working lads that could play, but they were
mm,
unsung heroes. And I remember we battled really hard against the big teams like Gloucester and Leicester and Bath, and we nearly won a few games.
mm.
Um, they made me captain halfway through the year, which was a real honour.
That's good.
Just
Delay.
Yeah, well, just because I think we were struggling, and I've always had a very positive attitude towards, look, we can't beat them at their game, but what are our strengths?
Mm,
How can we be really strategic? And we had one lad who was a massive weightlifter, played 12 MO, and I said, mate, your job is just to break the opposition. Your job isn't to be fancy and try flash things. It's a bit like an enforcer. And
yes.
he got that, and he'd go out and he'd remember him hurting people like de Glanville and Carling and whoever else, was playing in the midfield against us. And we found an edge. So it was again, it was really happy times because we'd train hard, we'd play hard, win or lose. We then go out into Yarm and Tall Trees nightclub or get pissed in
Mm,
a pub. And then you'd just go around again. So we had this, to be fair, I'd then jump in a car Sunday morning and go down to Twickenham for England training. But
yes.
it was still in what I'd call the amateur days. We trained, but we also socialised, uh, which was almost the happiest time for your career because you're not just training, ice bathing, etc. You're actually playing hard rugby like 90% of the lads do around the country on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yes.
But then you'd have a bit of a social time with your opposition. You'd always have a pint with your opposite number, have a chat with him, which is amazing. So you get to know and straight away, it doesn't really matter who's won. You're just respecting each other, talk about the game, talk about life, make a new
Yeah.
mate, and off you go. And the away trips were amazing. So I remember,
Probably the best ones, weren't they?
yeah, well, it's amazing how many times you find yourself in the Wetherby Whaler on the way back to Hartlepool, or
Yeah.
you're coming up and you're having lock-ins, and because I'm from Wakefield, but it was nice. The rugby clubs up north, Newcastle and Hartlepool, used to stop in Wakefield to get drunk on the way home. So you're coming back out of London and you'd pull in at
Brilliant.
Halifax or at Wakefield and have 3 or 4 pints, and it just breaks the journey. So that was
Yeah.
nice for me. I could sort of arrange to see a few mates on the way through.
Yeah. I can imagine the away games being the better games. I really can, because that's often the way in sport, isn't it, really? A lot of fun. I mean, your big move then happened when you signed for Newcastle Falcons. What a side they were, known as Newcastle Red Bulls at the time, of course, who are a rugby union team that played or play in the Gallagher Prem, England's highest division of rugby union. Exciting times, Tim. Newcastle Falcons.
Well, yeah, because when I was playing at Hartlepool, I had a job at ICI. So I was
Mm,
working as much as I could full time, and then trying to train before work, 6 o'clock in the morning, do a bit at lunchtime. There was a lovely girl called Angela that used to hide me in the afternoon because I need a bit of sleep. and then I'd do training every night. Whereas we signed for Newcastle, and all of a sudden you've got all day to train.
Mm,
I did go part time for a bit, but it wasn't working. Before they sacked me, I said, look, because rugby had gone full time pretty quickly.
yeah.
So then, who do I remember there? That's Rob Andrew and Steve Bates and Dean Ryan with a coaching team that came up from Wasps, and then they recruited a team to be competitive. Uh, and then a guy called Steve Black, who
Mm,
again, if you think about the biggest inspirations on me, he's a phenomenal character. He was a brilliant personal fitness coach, but he was more than that. He was a playwright and a poet. He'd run the doors, as a bare knuckle fighter in Newcastle.
fantastic.
And so he was the big inspiration. And people like Johnny Wilkinson was there. And if you interview Johnny on this, he'd be saying, well, the person that really helped me become the athlete that I became and the confident person that went on to win a World Cup. It's people like Steve Black. So Newcastle was a fantastic experience for most of it. So we got promoted in year one, which was dead exciting, and you're flying. And then, unfortunately, I went off and played for the Lions in that bit, which was great because I was playing for England, playing for Newcastle, playing for the Barbars. It was all going the right way as a
Mm,
sort of 23-year-old kid. And then, unfortunately, when I came back off the Lions and I played another dozen games, I was given an ultimatum really by Rob Andrew to say, I want you to sign a longer contract to keep me under contract, to keep me there, or
mm,
I'm not going to play you anymore. And I felt that was a bit coercive and wasn't in
sounds
my
okay.
best interests. So I decided not to sign it, but then it meant that he didn't pick me again for the rest of the season, which
Mm,
at the time was heartbreaking because
very.
you just want to play. You're just desperately fit. You played the best rugby of your life because you've just been away with the Lions and having to do warm ups and then don't do corporate when the match started was horrendous. Um, but I survived it, and when I got away, that gave me the inspiration to try and pick a rugby club that had good management and a sound financial footing. So yeah, it was a horrible time. Very,
Yeah,
worst thing about it, to be honest, was you're fit and hungry to play, and England drop you because Clive said I can't pick you because you're not playing on for your
yeah, it's
club.
tough.
But then your mates are also saying, why aren't you playing? What's your agent doing?
Yeah,
Why is he taking? And to be fair, it was nothing to do with that. It was just about I think Rob had the challenge of trying to keep his squad together at a certain budget, and because I was the first guy to renegotiate from if you like, the
mm,
internationals that he'd brought in, he had no room to manoeuvre, and I became an unwilling victim of that. Um, but
yeah,
you move
definitely.
on, like you said, mistakes happen,
I
bumps in the
do.
road. Um, and what was good was I was able to leave and go and join Leicester. But I still have really happy memories of that first sort of year and a half at Newcastle because my granddad was living there. I actually went and lived with him alongside the Macmillan nurses that were looking after him as well. And so I had time with my granddad, who's one of my big inspirations. So I'd never say that was a waste of time. That was a privilege.
Yeah, and
And
all that happened in 1998, didn't it? With the falling out with the Newcastle's management team, and of course, as you say, Rob Andrew as well, who was a great player in his day as well. Rob Andrew, wasn't he? And and of course, you only made 4 appearances for him, as they indeed won the Premiership title as well. That must have been quite disappointing. But at the end of the season, you did sign for Leicester Tigers, a big move indeed. But what happened in your final season and the falling out with Rob Andrew and the management team? I know you kind of explained a little bit, probably around the finances, trying to tie you in for a longer period of time. You couldn't do that. But yeah, you joined the Leicester Tigers. That's an interesting story, isn't it? Really good year at Newcastle, a good learning curve for
well,
you,
you've
Tim.
got to be aware that professional sport is brilliant if you're fit
Yeah,
and you're in favour. I mean, and
absolutely.
I'd always had that. I'd had a dream start. I'd had a young England, so from under 16s, 18s, 21 students. I'd always been capped. I'd always been fit. I did
Mhm.
actually have a bit of a season off under 15 with a knee, but I bounced
Yeah,
back under 16s. Um, so it'd always just been rugby's great. Go and play your best, and
yes,
you get picked. Go and play your best, get picked for England. Go and play for the Lions, and then it was just a big bump in the road. It's just a wrong
absolutely.
time for my England career because
Yes.
obviously just got established. I learned a lot from that Lions tour,
Mm.
but it just meant that when I went back down to Leicester, I just wanted to, you know, play and keep my nose clean. and make sure that, I earn the respect of what is now a really big club. I
Yeah,
think
huge.
it was hilarious. The very first day I turned up at Leicester for the pre-season, I remember just being punched in the face by Richard Cockerell.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Welcome
so
to the club.
yeah, well, that's what it was. It was just
Yeah.
a bit like, if I hadn't been bullied by Terry Garnett at Wakefield, I would have taken it personally. It's
Mhm.
just something that the front row do to see whether or not you're a man or a mouse, or whether you're pretentious, arrogant student who thinks he's special, or whether you are going to earn our respect. So when he punched me, I hit him back 3 or 4 times because I've been
It's good for you.
brought up in Wakefield. So you've got to look
Yeah.
after yourself. So,
You which you did.
and
Fantastic story.
that was because it was awful because it was the first day, and you're like, all I want to do is earn the respect of the team, get
Mhm.
myself in the squad. And Dean Richards, who was our boss at the time, he said, "Oi, Cockerell Stimpson, get into my porter cabin now. I want to word with you." My first day, and he said, "I don't care what shite you've got going on with England. If you two don't like each other, don't you dare bring it into my club."
Mm.
So you drive away from training going, "Oh no, what have I done?" But then I found out, I think it was somewhere like Cheltenham on the way back from Gloucester about 4 years later. I was having a drink with Cockers, and he said, "You know what, Stimo? Dino asked me to punch you." So it was just a Dean Richards all the time. I'd wanted to find out whether I was a decent bloke, i.e.,
Yeah.
a scrapper, someone that was prepared to look after myself and my teammates, or whether I was just there for the money or for the glory.
Yeah.
So I think I'd passed the Dino test, but it just took me 4 years to find out. This is, but yeah,
Yeah. That's a great
Leicester
story.
was quite a funny place, mate. It's fun.
I can imagine. And of course, it started going your way at Leicester as well, because after the retirement of Joel Stransky in 1999, you became Leicester Tigers' principal goal kicker. A huge step forward, Tim. It's starting to work your way here.
Yeah, but I was gutted though, mate, because Joel was the main reason why I went. He was
Mm.
obviously won the World Cup for South Africa in '95. He was a brilliant fly
Yes.
half. And if those that play rugby, that a fly half is the general, and he understands. And I played fly half until I was 15 or 16 anyway, but it's very similar to a fullback. You sort of mid in football parlance, you're probably sitting 8 or 10.
Yes.
You're either, pulling the strings and letting the lads go. And when Joel would put me through a hole, because I knew what he was going to do, I could instinctively read him and knew what I was. And we had a great combination going. And then when he did his knee, I was gutted because you want to play with the world's best players.
Of course you
Uh,
do.
but yeah, because I'd been working with Dave Allred from Hartlepool to Newcastle with Rob Andrew as a goal kicker, and I'd always been a kicker. So I was ready to step up with Leicester, which is why I went on and, like you said, got all those points.
Mm.
And what was nice, actually, I actually coached Andy Good while I became the kicking coach while I was there as well. So I'm really pleased when you said a minute ago that Andy Good has scored even more points. And obviously Johnny Wilkinson was with me at Newcastle as
Mm.
a young kid coming through. I was like the 23-year-old international. So we've had that. You have a camaraderie between goal kickers. It's quite a lonely job. But it's
Yes.
lovely when you spend time together with England or with coaching clinics that you all help each other. And it's sort of whatever madness gets you through. And yeah, so I'm pleased that I got that chance with Leicester, and it became quite a key role that I played as part of
Indeed.
that great
Indeed, it
team.
was.
Mm.
And then, of course, in the 2001 Heineken Cup final against Stade Francais, you converted Leon Lloyd's last-minute try from the right-hand touchline. Probably the most difficult position to kick a conversion from for a right-footed player or kicker, I would say, to be honest. Your conversion put Leicester Tigers ahead 34-30, which meant that to win the match, Stade Francais would have to score a try rather than the easier task of their fly half, Diego Dominguez. Dominguez? Have I said that right?
Dominguez.
Yeah, Dominguez, who kicked all the Stade Francais points, landing a goal. The game ended 34-40, and the Heineken Cup was yours. An incredible match, which I'm sure you have many memories and stories to tell as well, Tim. What a great game that was, 34-30. Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing because I think we'd won the domestic championship at Leicester for a couple of seasons,
Yes.
but we'd set our stall out to say we want to be the European or the world's best club rugby team.
Mm.
And the way to do that, you've got to win the biggest championship. So Northampton had won it. We hadn't won it. So we can't claim that we're the best. And so getting to that final was the final hurdle to get that first Heineken Cup win. Um, and so it was what we've been working towards for 3 years, really. And then all of
Yes.
a sudden we're up against Stade Francais, and we talk
Big
about it.
club.
Yeah, amazing. They were full of star players.
Mm.
And Leicester generally had a very strong forward pack, which allowed me to kick a lot of goals. Because when you have dominance in the scrum, then the referee gives penalties, and then the kicker is important to make the most of all the hard work the forwards are doing up front. We could score tries out wide, like Leon scored lots of great tries, but generally Leicester won the games up front. But when we played that final, we're up against Stade Francais on a beautiful, hot, sunny day. It was really warm. It was, everyone, I think most of my mates, even the guys that won World Cup finals, say that that's their favourite game.
Yes.
Amazing, because it was just, the atmosphere was electric. It was hot, and everybody had to play out of their skin, and it came down to, really fine margins. But I think, well, I remember the heat. I remember the pressure. I actually kicked a goal from that touchline earlier in the game that had not been
Mm.
allowed, because we'd
Oh.
scored. Yeah, and I was gutted because I think he went over the top of the uprights, and the touch judge said he didn't go over, and I was like, wow. So when we were finally awarded, Leon, Austin, and all those guys made the try into the corner, I'd already had a sighter, and all day I'd been in this duel with Diego, who, as you said,
Mm.
then he didn't. He might have missed one, and I'd missed one, and it was
Mm.
sort of 9 against 8, and it was a real battle. And I knew I had to get it because he would have dropped a goal. He's so good, so talented, and the forward pack instead was so strong. Uh, uh, So to be honest, I did what I've always done, is that if ever you've seen Happy Gilmore, the movie, it's all about how do you keep your head down, how do you focus
Mm.
uh, on a golf ball. But I do the same with a rugby ball. So I focus on rugby ball. And I think the most important thing you can do is keep your head down, keep your head still, and make sure you're watching the ball as you make contact.
Mm.
And the way that I do that is that I put Rob Andrews' face onto the rugby ball. And
Very
then,
good.
and that keeps my
Yeah.
attention. And it
Yeah.
work, because Rob was, whatever happened, he did teach me discipline. He was a really hard-working professional
Mm.
who taught us, me and Johnny, a hard edge. And I'll always be grateful for what he did as a goal kicking
Brilliant. Well said.
mentor as well. So you take the positives from people almost as a compliment. I'm going to put Rob's face there to remind me to be what we'd call cold evil, to
Yeah.
really focus. And then I'd make sure I made contact with the ball before I looked to see where it had gone. And so I knew that I'd hit the ball, middle of the middle, and it sailed through the middle of the post, and it's, amazing. And then it meant that they had to score a try and they didn't quite make it. I was able
Yeah.
to body check somebody I wouldn't otherwise have been able to cheat. These days it'd be a yellow card, but
Mm.
back in the day it was just professional.
Yeah.
And we managed to hold on in against a forward pack that had beaten us up. But I think it was Pat Howard, who was our mercurial centre that day. He'd said, look, guys, forget the strategy. It just isn't working. We're going to have to do different things. And so if ever you watch the video of that, you see Pat Howard kicking and he never kicked. You see Jordan Murphy kicking. You see Leon Lloyd kicking. We had to
Mm.
try something different. And that's what I love about that day, is that all the plans we'd made for 3 years weren't working, but we built trust in each other.
Yeah.
So on the moment, we were able to say, no, we've got to, okay, we'll change it. We'll fix this. And we never gave up the belief that we could fix it, even with Jono in the bin for punching someone.
Fantastic. What a great story. Great story, great match, great victory. Amazing. And of course, as mentioned previously, you played for England as fullback between 1996 and 2002, narrowly missing the 2003 World Cup victory in Australia. So tell us more about your England days, your debut match, of course, the 1999 World Cup, the Six Nation battles. They're a powerful thing. And why you didn't make the World Cup winning England team of 2003. There must be a story behind that.
Well, it's a big regret, isn't it? You
Oh, of
think
course. Yeah.
I'd have loved to have played. I think the first thing was the 1999 World Cup, actually, because on the
Mm.
back of recovering, if you like, from what happened at Newcastle, and
Yes.
then we went and won it with Leicester, and I was playing well with Leicester and carving things up. And you think, and I thought I was going to be picked for that 99 World Cup. And actually, internally within the England squad, I was. And so my kit was labelled as TS, and I was just expecting the public announcement to be Tim Stimpson in the squad. And
Yep.
unfortunately, I'm led to believe, I mean, Martin Johnson told me this, that Clive had a dream of the night before the selection was announced that he needed to take another centre. And he didn't tell me, he just had a change of heart and gave all my kit to somebody else. So I missed out
Oh,
on the 99 World Cup on a dream, which, that's really hard. Again, walking around the Lake District for a couple
very
of
hard.
days just to
Yep.
avoid contact with anybody.
That's confidence destroying, isn't it? That's awful. As you say, just because of a dream the night
Well,
before.
you just want to know why, don't you, in life? If you can,
Do.
if you've got a plan. So what happened, I'm fast forwarding a lot of this here, but back in then, we were fast forward to 2002, and I'd been in the England squad, played in those. We'd been beating South Africa, Australia, New Zealand at Twickenham. It was when England were really flying. I think even we'd say the England team was even better in 2001, 2002 than it was in 2003.
Mm.
We started to be a little bit more conservative, possibly. But in 2002, I said to Clive, can I have a cup of tea? Because I'm worried about what happened in 1999. I'm in year 22. I've taken the chances at Twickenham that I was given.
Mm.
Um, I want to know what I can do to stay in your squad.
Mm.
And so eventually I sat him down for a cup of tea and I said, Clive, what have I got to do to be picked for the World Cup? Let me know. I'll work away. This is really important to me. And to be fair, he finished his cup of tea and just put it down and said, well, that's for you to work out. And that was the end of the conversation.
Oh,
So it wasn't really helpful again.
ah,
It was disappointing, but I think why didn't I get picked? You can probably say it's got to be down to the talent of the guys that did. There were some great players that went to that World Cup, like Ian Bolshaw and Matt
yeah.
Perry and people. And then Josh Lucy was someone that hadn't been on the scene, but he worked so hard at his game and he played for that really successful Wasps team that he was he's a brilliant player. And I have a lot of respect for the guys that did get picked. So rather than think, poor me,
Mm.
at the time, I just thought, you know what? On some days, I'd have been the best fullback. Other days, they outplayed me. It's really close. And I think ultimately that Clive went with the guts of the people that he'd worked more with. So I think Perry,
Mm-mm.
Bolshaw, and Josh. And at the time, there's an incredible player called Jason Robinson
Oh,
as well.
yes.
So I still think when I'm asked, Tim, who do you respect the most of who you played with and against? Jason Robinson is phenomenal. And he was a winger more than a fullback, but obviously covered fullback. He played fullback a lot for Sale. But he did brilliantly both in rugby league and he could win games for the Lions against Australia, etc., etc. And I think one other factor was that Johnny Wilkinson was arguably the world's best goal kicker, and he was always playing. So if you didn't have a goal kicking wizard at 10, who's the next best? It'd probably be me. But because Johnny was always there, and a lad called Paul Grayson, who was another phenomenal fly half for England. So we had and then even, so there were some part-time kickers like Matt Dawson that thought they could do it, but, you know, joking. So we really had a lot of talent knocking about. We had lots of captains in that side, lots of leaders, lots of proven, I say world-class players. So I think rather than me be bitter about it, you say, well, actually, I was lucky to be part of a team that was as strong as anybody in the world.
Yep.
We managed to beat, New Zealand at home. And it was great to be in that environment. And I've learned from that environment and taken it on into my life and thought,
Mm.
well, I would like to manage better than Clive did because I don't think I ever got the feeling of belonging.
Mm.
So when I'm coaching now or in business now, it's really important that you spend the time one-on-one to
I
get to know
agree.
people off the field.
Yeah.
What makes them tick? What hurts? What helps? How can we have an honest plan about, okay, well, let's say you're not very good at catching the high ball. Well, let's teach you how to catch the high ball.
Mm.
And if you can't get to the standard, then you'll know why you're not picked. But I just, rather than it being a horses for courses or a subjective view as a coach, I think it's
Yes.
really important that, and when I'm coaching, even the kids now, it's get out there and have a go, boys. And I don't care if you make mistakes. I'd rather you dug in, but come over here and let's work on these skills again. And so I love to give one-on-one feedback to players so that they can understand where they are and what they've got to do to get better. So what I don't like is when dads shout rubbish at referees or shout rubbish at players and then don't teach them how to do it any better. So
Mm.
that's what I've had to manage some of the parents and say, this is rubbish and come on. And you think, well, hang on, unless you're going to be constructive and positive and
No,
you're
I
going
quite
to
agree.
take a kid out to one side and teach them how to do it, how about you button up? Because
Yeah.
it's important that we build confidence through sport. It's important that these kids know that when I get the ball, I know what I'm going to do with it. And if I make a mess of it. So there was excuse me, there's a lot of criticism online for swearing, but one of my other inspirational teachers was a guy called Tizza Taylor, who was my coach at West Hartlepool. And he was an Australian nuggety sort of surfer dude from Manly. And he went, mate, if you fuck up, just fix up. Fuck it. And that was him as a coach, mate. If you fuck
Yeah.
up, just fix up. And
Typical. Yeah, brilliant.
yeah, but it's so simple. What a great message.
Yeah,
So don't if you make a mistake, we all make mistakes. We
you
all,
do.
you ask Ben Kay, he dropped the ball over the line in the World Cup final, but
Mm.
he didn't give up. He thought, what's my next job? And that was a big thing about working in that Clive Woodward environment, that we always just kept pushing. And if we'd make mistake, your mate would fix it for you. He'd pick you up. And that was that great story. I think it was Will Greenwood went over to Ben Kay. And if you heard this story, and Ben, all the forwards, never mind Ben, catch the next one, focus on the next line out, focus on the next scrum, focus on the next tackle. And Will Greenwood walked over to Ben in the World Cup final and said, mate, that's going to live with you for the rest of your fucking life. So, but we were mates and we still are. So
Yeah.
your mate can look you in the eye and give you the honest truth and you can learn from that. And I think when you call this podcast, if I'm allowed to, Tim Stimpson, the guided missile, are you gonna explain what that is at some stage, or
I will come in at the back end of
okay, well leave it for
podcast.
then.
Yeah,
Then. Yeah,
definitely. So that's all good stuff. I mean, Tim, you were so unlucky. The 1999 World Cup, missing out on a dream. 2003, obviously the World Cup winning team, but you played in as you said, the 2000, 2001, 2002 team that was building up to that World Cup winning team. So arguably you did play some fantastic games for England, who were at the time the world number ones, weren't they? So it's fantastic to be part of that build-up, but unlucky for the World Cups. You then went on to on the 1997 British Lions tours to South Africa. I do love the British Lions tours; they're incredible. I think it's fair to say you would have played in the tests against the Springboks at first choice fullback, or I should say, as first choice fullback, were it not for the better goal kicking of Neil Jenkins, which proved crucial to the Lions' series victory. You must have been bitterly disappointed yet again not to get a test under your belt for the British Lions. So it's not just England, it's the British Lions as well, narrowly missing out for various reasons. It's a shame.
yeah. But I did manage to play in the third Test match, so I am
Oh, you did?
I am a
Okay.
British Lion, and it's a funny one that because I think I was the best fullback on that
Yes,
tour.
no doubt.
And we played some great rugby in some of the provincial games and the warm-up games. But I think what was beautiful about that tour as well was that it was brilliantly managed. So whereas I've been a little bit critical of some of the things that Clive did, the opposites to be said for what McGeechan did, Telfer and Cotton. And we could talk for hours about how they selected the squad. They didn't
Yep.
select necessarily the best players in each country. They selected the best players who could do the job that was needed. So would they be flexible? Would they go underneath the big South Africans? So the likes of
Mm.
Tom Smith was never going to be stronger than Oz Durant, but we'll find a guy that get underneath him in the scrum. So it negates their strength. And then
Yes.
we picked fast forwards who were able to offload and could play a fast, fluid game to keep the ball moving away from the big, like bullies, if you like. They're bigger, faster, stronger than us.
Mm.
And it's hard to tell Lawrence Dallaglio that he's not hard enough.
Yeah, definitely.
I never said that. But
That's not going to go down very well. Yeah.
man for man, they'd been professional almost for longer,
Mm.
and they were fitter and stronger, and they just won the World Cup in '95 with Nelson Mandela and all that. So they were really flying. So we had to find a way of going round them, and that was the genius of McGeechan. So
Mm.
leave your egos at home, boys, and this is how we're going to play. So we developed that style, which I loved. And it was all about, veal prut, it's called, or pass and move in soccer. You're always doing triangles as opposed to trying to go through the route one. You're going round people. So, yeah, I mean, if we'd wanted to score tries in the final, they'd put me on. But what they thought was that it's going to be so tight, and these big international matches are so tight that it's going to come down to the odd goal kick. And the most proven goal kicker in the world was Neil Jenkins.
Yes, indeed.
And so he didn't have to run with the ball. He wasn't there to score tries. His job was to kick the goals. And he did it brilliantly in front of all those people with all that pressure. And as it happened, South Africa didn't pick a proven goal kicker for the first two tests, and that cost them because whereas Jenks hardly ever misses, they missed 4 or 5, and it was pivotal. And so you think, well, obviously I'd have loved to have played in the test match. Obviously, I think I could have kicked the goals. I did outscore Jenks on the tour, but the important kicks were in the test matches.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so people ask me, Tim, what's the most memorable or most important game of rugby you've ever played? And you think, well, one of them's at Paris, Leicester final. And then the other one's got to be the winning the series with the British and Irish Lions against Africa.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And where was I? Well, I was in the crowd. So we were in Kings Park in Durban, South Africa, and I was in the players' enclosure for the dirt trackers, if like the guys that don't get in the 22, with my suit a bit like this. But when Jenkins kicked the goals and when Jerry Guscott dropped the goal to win the second test and they blew the final whistle and I jumped up, one, I was a Lions supporter, but I was also integrally important to that Lions team. I never
Absolutely.
felt like I was an also ran or a bag carrier or a dirt tracker. Like I said, I actually felt like this is the most important thing I've ever done in rugby.
Brilliant.
And so I've got no regrets. So no, again, I don't carry regrets or pain with me. I've had quite a lot of setbacks in my career, but luckily I think I was prepared by my family to expect, shit's coming. You're going to have to deal with it. It's how you deal with it that'll be the defining moments. So get dropped, get injured, don't get picked, don't get paid. That's going to happen. But you've still got that strength of being loved by your family, respected by your
Definitely.
mates. You're never going to cross anybody. You're never going to badmouth anybody. You just carry on playing with a straight bat, and that hopefully will mean that you'll get what you deserve. And
Exactly.
so I don't have, I think I did go and see some counsellors after rugby a long time later, and they said, wow, you must be coping with so much emotional baggage. But I think that was more about relationships, and that was more about having to be a carer and that sort of thing than it was, what,
Definitely.
you missed out on this World Cup and you missed out on that Lions match. No, I just feel so happy that I'm a British Lion and so proud to have
Absolutely.
been part of something so important.
Absolutely right. And of course, in your tour with the British Lions, Ian McGeechan, of course, who was obviously coaching, was part of that infamous or famous 1974 tour of South Africa when the 99 call went up. So I take it on your tour, there was no plans for a 99 call again.
We were ready.
You're ready.
Yeah, no, we were ready. Yeah, you got to be ready
Oh,
because
you have.
you're in the. I remember even as a kid, I went across Africa and some second row just smashed my nose across my face when I was 17.
Yeah.
It's a physical environment. When I played in that 2001, 2002 game at Twickenham, I was
Yeah.
pinned on the floor and I was just getting my face filled in by some great big farmer because they weren't happy about the score. So
Yeah.
you can't go to South Africa and not be ready for a physical battle.
No, I agree
That's
with you.
the hardest place. At the moment, they're the world's best. Probably their second team is still
Mm,
arguably the second best team in the world.
mm.
And they've done it by changing rugby with what they call the bomb squad. They sort of won a World Cup by playing 5 second rows. They're so big and strong and fit that
They are.
they can get the ball and keep the ball and wear you down. And so, yeah, I mean, we were ready for the physical battle and we lost some
Yep.
lads on the way. We lost Doddy Weir with a stamp. We lost probably our best player was Rob Howley with a shoulder.
Mm.
Will Greenwood obviously swallowed his tongue and was he's saved by the dock, and
Yeah,
so you lose players on any tournament, because it's an attritional match.
yes,
But then you
absolutely.
just got to say, look, I'm still healthy. What would they give for a chance to do what you've got a chance to do? And I've always felt that if you're scared of failure, just think about how much somebody else would like just one chance to live in your shoes, to kick that goal at Welford
Absolutely.
Road or at Twickenham. And then you think, well, what right have I got to be nervous?
Mm.
I'm the best person in the world at being me. There's no,
Yep,
if not me, who? If not now, when?
quite agree.
So that frees me up to think, you know what, I'll give it my best shot, and it might not be perfect, but if I try hard enough, I'll get enough.
Yeah, you make your own luck in the end, don't you? It needs a lot of effort, and you were part of it, as you say, Tim. Fantastic honour to have, which I know you accept with glowing colours. So it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Then, of course, just to change it a little bit, in 2002, in the 2002 Heineken Cup semi-final against, now I'm going to get this name wrong. I always say Flanelli, but you'll correct me. It's not
Finesse,
called Clonethny.
yeah, got to spit a lot.
Yeah. You got to spit a lot. That's why I can't pronounce it. So with only a few minutes remaining, the score was 10-12 to the Welsh side.
Yeah,
I can't spit, honestly. The Tigers were awarded a penalty at a scrum inside their own half, and you elected to go for the goal from 60 metres out. The ball hit one of the posts and the crossbar before going over to give the Tigers a 13-12 lead. I mean, what a kick! Which led, which they held out. The Tigers held out to gain the victory. So, Tim, tell us more about that semi-final match. I mean, a huge kick to win the match too. I mean, that's some kick, isn't it? 60 metres out, hit the
Yeah,
crossbar on
probably
the
80.
post.
I
Oh, probably
exaggerate it
80,
every
yeah.
year.
I
The further
exaggerate a
away it
little
gets.
bit.
Um,
Brilliant.
no, but it was one of those. So we won that Paris final, and then we
Yep.
tried to retain it. How do we stay the best? The best teams in the world stay at the
Yes,
top. So they're talking about the Washington Redskins or the Chicago Bulls or
exactly.
Liverpool or Man United. It's not about getting to the top, it's staying at the top. So
Stay in there.
we changed our mindset. I said, right, we've now got to win it again. And to win it, you've got to play against the best. And we
You
played
have.
against this Clonethley team, was full of Welsh internationals, like Scott Quinnell and Steve Jones and that. So,
Mm.
and again, it was a really tight battle and it was really windy. So it meant that it was a scrappy affair. So I think Harry Ellis had slid in for one of our tries. And I think even Stephen Jones thought that, the game was almost up. And kick the ball off field. So what it meant was that I was stood at fullback getting really frustrated, thinking, when am I going to get a chance to win this game? We're running out of time.
Yeah.
So eventually there was a penalty, as you said, awarded on our 10-metre line. But there's a story there as well, because in the preparation for the game, Dean Richards, our coach, was really thorough, and he'd always assess the opposition and the referee. So in his notes, he said, look, this referee doesn't like to give kickable penalties from scrums.
Mm.
So Darren Garforth, our silverback, man voted most likely to have sex outside of his own species. But he's the big enforcer. He remembered what Dino said and said, this referee doesn't give penalties that are kickable. So I, allegedly, might collapse the scrum. So I think Darren collapsed the scrum so that we got the penalty on our 10-metre line, thinking we can kick the ball into the corner and try a line out, catch and drive, and try and either get a penalty down there or get a try.
Mm.
But what I'd done that week is I'd gone up to Nottingham Forest every day. I'd managed to bribe the groundsman with a packet of sweets or chocolate bar. Can you let me on the pitch just for 10 minutes? Because I want to do my prep. And when you're a goal kicker, the length of the grass is different, right? The wind that comes round the stadium is different depending on wind direction. It tends to loop round. So a bit like a golfer, you want to know what the ball's going to do when it starts losing energy. So I'd done my prep and I knew that I could kick a ball from the 10-metre line. And then when I ran forward I said to referee, we're going for posts. And as soon as somebody says that, the ref doesn't change his mind. The captain, Mike Johnson, went, oh, okay, Stimo, what have you done there? Because he probably forgot to ask me, because he'd always ask me in the games, Stimo, can you kick it? What percentage chance have you got? And then he'd decide to say line out or kick. But because it was so far back, Jono forgot, I think, in the pressure to ask me. and I knew that I could kick that. So I ran forward and went for going for posts. But then when the ref said, okay, going for post, he then walked backwards. So he walked back towards me. I'd called that from 40 yards away.
Yeah.
And then he walked it, and I thought, oh no, that's a little bit too far. So again, I didn't panic. I just said, can I have a glass of water, and took the water and handed it back to the ref. And as I did that, I took a couple of steps forward. And then when I reached out for the kicking tee, put it down on the ground just a couple of yards forward. So it went from probably 62 to, they said, about 59.
Yeah.
And so usually that wouldn't make any difference, would it? But
Yeah.
because the ball hit the crossbar and then the post and went over, so it was never any doubt. Those inches that I stole
Made a difference. Yeah.
which is why Scott Quinnell and his mates aren't very happy with me about that. We've had many a pint since, and he just said, fair plays to Mo, you kicked it, and we wish you hadn't, but well done for stepping up and taking responsibility.
Yeah, great confidence that was doing that.
You're just doing your
Fantastic.
job. I
Say.
think
Your job, yeah.
I can't do the hard grunt that the big strong boys do. I'm not the guy that wins the line out or calls the line out. I'm not the guy that plays fly half. My job is to do my bit really well. And then I
Absolutely
give the
right.
ball to the people who are better than me when it's their chance. So I give the ball to Jordan Murphy if he's got to beat somebody one-on-one. But when it came to my job, that's my job, and I'm going to get that done.
Exactly, which you did. And of course, Leicester Tigers were in their second consecutive final. And of course, you went on to win the final against Munster. So capturing the Heineken Cup for the second time in back-to-back victories. It's incredible, that is. You also kicked a penalty and a conversion in the final. I mean, the great memories, Tim, aren't they? Huge victories for you and the Leicester Tigers. I mean, massive.
Yeah, I think that out of all the games, that's probably my best performance, was that Millennium, as it's called now, the Principality. But
Yeah.
I had a game against Ronan O'Gara, who's now probably one of the best coaches in the world. But he was one of the best fly halves, and we had a battle as fullback and fly half. And so nobody else will know, but he'll know, and I know that I did all right that day.
Yeah.
And I negated the Munster game plan. And I also threw a dummy to Gervin Dempsey that I then gave the ball to Jordan Murphy. So I remember it. And I think that was when I really went for it, because I think it was one of those days where I was needed to do something different, because
And you did.
the opposition was so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got very happy memories. As I said, it didn't always go well. I remember I missed a kick for West Hartlepool from in front of the post that was an anti-sporting Bloomers. I remember getting a score on playing for Durham University against Bristol. And I didn't make that World Cup.
Yeah.
Or I didn't play it. But overall, you think, you know what? I've got to be so grateful to have played with such great players that could give me the confidence to be better than I would have been without them. So you've got to be happy with that.
You have indeed. And to add to that as well, you also won a record 5 consecutive Premiership titles with Newcastle Falcons, of course, when you were there for that 1 year, and the Leicester Tigers. I mean, 5 consecutive Premiership titles is no mean feat, is it, Tim? It's very impressive. I mean, which was the most memorable Premiership final win, and why?
Tough one. Probably the first one with Leicester, because it was the start of a new era. There'd been a changing of the guard, John Wells, Dean Richards took over, Pat Howard, who came in as backs coach, and it was the first time we really delivered it. We got together as a new crew. It's a big club. It's a bit like playing for Manchester United, where you're expected to bring home the silverware.
Yep.
And doing it was great. And I think, especially for me, having left Newcastle, who'd won it the year before, but without me, it was nice to put one over on them. And I remember, I think I broke the individual point scoring record playing against Newcastle for Leicester that year at Welford Road. So there was some unfinished business there. And it was good to get one over on the guys that sort of had shafted me in the past.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. I mean, that's a huge record to have. 5 consecutive Premiership title wins is just incredible with 2 clubs. And then, of course, in 2003, it was rumoured that you were linked to French club Perpignan, despite having time left on your contract at Leicester Tigers. Despite initial denials from Tigers management, you did sign and move to France after the 2003 World Cup. I mean, Tigers released you from your contract. However, you failed to play for Perpignan for whatever reason, and in 2004 returned to England to play for Leeds Tykes. So what's the story behind your move to Perpignan, Tim, and what appears to have been a wrong move? Is it injury or
Yeah, it's
what was it?
bad timing, mate. It was
Bad
awful.
timing.
Bad
Oh,
timing.
okay.
So,
Happens, doesn't it, in
well,
life?
and also we'll put it in context. So
Mm.
I missed out on that 2003 World Cup because I thought,
Yep.
like, okay, my England career is over. Um, I need to go and have a new experience. To be fair, there was some thinking about the future because you could earn twice as much tax free
Yep.
playing in Perpignan, but they were signing up an international, a bit like at Newcastle back in the day. They were recruiting from Australia. So they had like Daniel Herbert, the most capped centre, Scott Robertson,
Yeah.
who's now the key New Zealand All Black coach. He was coming in. Dan Luger was there. My mate Perry had gone. So it was about a chance to go, you know what? They've been after me for 3 or 4 years. We kept playing against Perpignan. They kept saying, Le Grand Boutet, you must come and play with us. And they'd
Mm.
been after me for ages. And I thought, you know what? Why not go and live on the beach and go and
Yes.
do it again with a new crew? Learn
Yes.
French and all that. So that was my goal. And so I went out there wanting to do well. And
Yes.
unfortunately, after I signed and played some more games for Leicester, I then found a benign tumour in my knee.
Ooh.
So it was a horror of a thing. You kicked a ball playing against Leeds. Why is that so sore? I better just check it out. And then, wow, there's a tennis ball growing in my knee. You better get that taken out. So I got
Yes.
that removed and they said it was benign. And you think, brilliant, I just need to get fit. Unfortunately, I got a bit of an infection on the flight over to France, which meant that I had to open up my knee again, which meant I wasn't ready to play the
Horror
first
story.
Heineken Cup game. But they wanted me to be ready because they'd paid a lot of money for me and they had lots of pride invested in this. Le Grand Boutet arrived by private jet and went and had a lovely private meals with all these partners. And actually, my first training session, I had to do 100 times 100 meters with loads of blokes from Barcelona watching me with dark glasses on. So it's horrendous. But
Yeah, I can imagine.
so they made me play on one leg. We say it's chocolate. So as soon as I caught the ball and tried to run, I fell over because my leg was still unstable from
Mm.
the surgery and the infection. So unfortunately, they weren't happy. They thought I must have known about my tumor.
Oh.
They didn't want to pay me, so they didn't pay me. And so eventually I had to go to court to get released. So
Oh,
my dream move to France ended up being an 8-9 month nightmare.
nightmare. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Where you become a victim of, professional sport when from a club perspective, you understand that they've signed a player because he was fit and they wanted me to deliver on the pitch, but I
Mm.
couldn't deliver because I had a bad leg. So they should have said, okay, just go and get fit. And when you're fit, we'll play you. But they made me play too early under pressure, probably. So
Yeah, that's
it ended up being,
crazy.
I had to go to court. I had to get Eric Cantona's lawyer, Natalie Brandon,
Mm.
to represent me. And it took 2 years. So that's what happened. It meant that I was just doing physio in France. And eventually I came home. I went off to Australia where my sister lives and just worked out in a police gym in Sydney for the summer, trying to rebuild my leg. And then I got up to Leeds because I think Leicester offered me a contract. I think Wasps
Yes.
offered me a contract, but Leeds was back home. Leeds was back to where I'd come from, and they were promising a player coach role.
Mm.
And I thought, well, I can go and live with mum and dad while I get established. That'll be nice. And then I can, develop my coaching skills with a view probably to coming back to Leicester as director of rugby. That was probably my plan at the time. Unfortunately, when I got to Leeds, they said, I'm sorry, we've made a mistake. We've already got a coach. So you just have to play, which is a bit of a shock. Um, and then I played up at Leeds. But it did take me another, I don't know, 6 months of training to get back to full fitness.
Mm.
So I was really pleased with finally getting fit. And I remember scoring a couple of tries and a load of points in the Power Gen Cup semi-final. And I thought, finally, I'm back. I'd made it back into we used to do hill runs at Headingley. No, around Day Park it was. And I'd made it back into the top 5 in this Leeds team. And they'd been joking with me saying, Stimmer, you're brilliant on one leg. You keep running around in circles and loads of abuse. I think there's a bloke called Marshall who was played 93 games for New Zealand. And he said, Stimmer, I can't understand why you're not playing more often. What have you said to the coach? What are you doing with the coach's wife? It's a typical Kiwi sort of,
Yeah.
but that meant so much to me because I was so frustrated not playing more at Leeds,
Mm.
having spent all that time getting fit again. So, so that's what happened in Perpignan. It was just
Yeah. Just
a really
unlucky
bad timing
situation.
to find a tumour. Yeah, and
Well,
it was another one of those where I can only take the positives out of it. I made some good friends over in France. I picked up a bit of the language, but then I realised that it's not a good place to be if you're injured.
absolutely, and they seem to be treated us, really unfairly there in France, which is a huge shame. They should have kept you back. They should have got you recovered first, back to full fitness, to force you to play like that because they wanted you to play, knowing very well you'd been under the knife, you had surgery, you'd had a tumour removed,
Mm.
or say it benign, as you said. A bit more understanding would have been more thankful, wouldn't it? But not the case. But while at Leeds Tykes, I know you talked about it already in the semi-final, kicking points. You helped them win the Powergen Cup in 2005, of course, because they did get to the final. They did win it.
Yeah.
However, you were not in the squad for the final itself. You decided to retire from playing for Leeds Tykes to pursue a career in coaching in January 2006. So how was the switch to coaching? And who did you coach at the time after retiring from Leeds Tykes as a player?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I was probably popping a lot of pills, painkillers, to train and to play. It was easy when you're in your 20s, early 30s, and then just having spent so much time getting fit, then I was starting to creak. And I just thought, well, rather than play down, rather than I got fit, broke on my personal best at sort of 33,
Mm.
34, but I still wasn't going to make it anymore in the top end. So I thought, before I'm broken, I'll go now. And I was sort of playing. So I went to Nottingham because Nottingham was the top feeder club, like Division 1 out of the Premiership,
Yes.
where I could then coach with some of the best Leicester players that weren't quite ready for first team at Leicester. Again, with a view to saying, well, my mates are still running Leicester. We're working in partnership. So people like Matt Smith, who ended up playing hundreds of games for Leicester, came and
Yeah.
had 18 games for me as a centre. So I was able to help him with his agoraphobia, which we joke about because he kept making breaks and then panicking. But
True
so,
story.
but it's just, you're able to get hold of a young 19, 20-year-old when they're really talented, the world's in front of them, and they just need, in my opinion, it's great to have a grey hair now or an old head just to take you under the wing. And that was my job, was to try and teach those lads at Nottingham um, some of the softer skills, some of the clever bits.
Yeah.
They're really fit. They're training really hard. They're working really hard. But how can you pass on some of your wisdom? And that was going pretty well. Unfortunately, very fortunately, me and my wife got pregnant, and she was teaching down in London,
Yeah.
and I was messing about coaching in Nottingham, thinking, well, this isn't really going to work, is it? So
No, it's not.
that was why I stopped coaching. I mean, I'd played a little bit player coach at Nuneaton, which was the same. It was a feeder club for Leicester. And I actually enjoyed playing after I left Leeds. I played 12 games and got them promoted. So me and Darren Garth, that's my mate, he was the forwards player and I was the backs player. And I had a bit of fun playing at Nuneaton, then went to Nottingham, and then unfortunately had to stop doing rugby coaching because it wasn't paying enough money after all the crap I had in France for me to
Mm,
look after my family. And it became, well,
indeed.
you better go and get some jobs in London because you need to think about, security more than, I'd probably love to stay coaching. Uh, but it wasn't the right thing for me and my family at
Because of
that
your
time.
circumstances, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's a very true statement, and these things happen in life, don't they? You just have to, make changes that you have to make, like them or not. That's life drives it to you. Sometimes it's happened to me in life too. So, but we all go through it. Let's be honest.
And I think
But that
it's
said,
good to talk about it because people
yes,
think, oh, wow, you've had this really great rugby career. You've gone into
mm,
business no, I didn't. I had a load of ups and downs in my
yeah,
rugby career. And then I had because I'd invested in Spanish properties, I'd invested in the Bahamas, I'd invested all my money I was going to earn
mm,
going to France because I basically was going to be given a load more money, but I never got that money. So I never went bankrupt, but all of a sudden people assume that oh, well done, you've earned loads of money playing rugby, which we didn't
Mm,
relative to football.
mm,
And then my investments with the stock market and everything else, and the global crash,
yeah,
meant that I had to literally go and get jobs to buy
yeah,
food. So again, it's very humbling. It means I've never been bored. I've never been,
yeah.
oh, I've got so much money, I'm just going to sit and play golf. No, no, no. I
Uh,
was grafting, which has probably made me a happier person potentially, because
yeah, definitely.
I've had to stay humble and stay alert, and I've never
Well, that's
been
a good
bored.
thing, though, isn't it? I mean, I've always said I'd never retire for one, Tim. I'll keep going. It doesn't matter because it's that choice in life that keeps the energy going, keeps the mind focused, keep yourself physically fit at the same time. It's
Mm.
so important, isn't it? If you suddenly start playing golf every day and don't do any thinking, don't do anything constructive with your mind, you'll lose it.
Yeah,
And it happens to so many people.
I think.
I don't want that to happen to me.
No, I'm sure it won't be doing this sort of thing, and meeting all
Mm.
these, people, and changing the world like you are. So the
Try to.
they will. The thing is, you've also got to find your new clan. I think that's something that
Yes.
I think, because I was down in London, I was away from my mates from Leicester, if you like, or from Yorkshire. So I think I found it difficult to know who to trust. And I don't
Yeah.
think that's any different from anybody else coming out of sport now, or coming out of the military. These lads you finish a career where you've earned the respect of your mates, you've got a really good crew, but that's not really helping you if you're working in banking or insurance or
Yeah.
utilities or whatever. So the lesson would be to stay closer to some of your old mates and try and get some sort of more secure stepping
Yeah.
stone where you can be
Some
looked after and
cohesion.
mentored, a bit like I did for Andy Good or Johnny
Yeah.
Wilkinson. I should have had a mentor taking me into what I call Civvy Street, into the world. But,
Mm.
we live
Not
and
to be.
learn. And if you know now what you knew then, life would have been easier, but all the other way around.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
indeed. Hindsight's a great thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we all have these stepping stones, shall we say, to cross. Well, most of us anyway. We've got the mentality and the energy to do this, which is a good thing, of course. And we all have these roadblocks, these stepping stones. I still suffer with it today. I get it all the time, but your Leeds Tykes coach, I mean, this was a fantastic statement. Phil Davies commented, and I'll quote what he said, 'cause it's quite incredible. Tim will always be remembered as one of the most successful players ever in the professional era of this country. I mean, that's some accolade, Tim, isn't it? What a
It's a lovely
fantastic
thing for
statement.
Phil to have said. I think it was at a time when I was very lucky to have been an amateur rugby player, like
Mm,
we talked about, and the fun and the personalities and the crack. And then I was there when it turned pro, and I was able to be at the right place at the right time with
exactly,
people like Newcastle and
exactly.
Leicester. And even if Pignon got to the final of that European Cup, it would have been another
Mm,
chance to win another bit of silverware, if I'd
good.
been healthy. So I've had a really nice domestic career. I've had a flavour of what it's like to play and win for England, and
Hmm.
and obviously to go on that successful tour of '97. Uh, and so yeah, I can take that, and it's given me the resilience to cope with the Civvy Street issues, the
Yeah.
bounces. And I think I think, and I come back to that solid foundation that my parents and my grandparents, they said to me, "Nil sil labor, nothing without labour, and neglect not the gift that is within thee." And these bit of Latin, like a bit old
Yeah.
fashioned, but no, this is what was written in my birthday card when I was 16 and 18 and 21. So it was never, "Go on, lad, go and play rugby for your country and earn a load of cash, and go and live in Dubai and have a laugh." It
Mm,
was never about that. So I was never judging myself against external stuff. It was always about, well, do the best with what you've got, be
yeah.
humble, learn, make sure you're helping people, they'll help you back. And so I think that my ultimate confidence comes from that family and the rugby family that adopted me at Sandal and then Wakefield and then Hartlepool. And so it's really important, I think, that we give kids a chance to experience that sort of belonging. And that's what sport has given me. So you've got your school life, but then when you get down the club, you can relax, you can be strong, you can bump into each other,
Yes.
you can smack each other, and you don't get told off. Actually, it's a great way of young men learning how to be men,
Mm,
taking responsibility for themselves and for their mates, not being bullies, but being confident. And
exactly.
so I think it's really important that we give these kids a chance. And that's why I love raising money for charities or rugby coaching or whatever it is now. And well done to all those coaches, all those school
Yeah.
teachers
Well, I
that maybe
agree.
don't get the financial reward they deserve, but what they're doing is building people who can cope with the shit that's coming.
Yeah, and the shit does come. We know that.
Yeah.
And we all get it in great heaps at times, I have to say.
Yeah.
Now, as we know, Tim, sport and business go hand in hand, and I know you have certain business interests. In fact, you're actually in one of your business partners' offices right now, recording
Yeah.
this podcast with me. So it's fantastic. So, what business capabilities and delivery are you now involved with? I know because we've been talking about some things, but I'll let you talk about it on the show. We've talked about certain business capabilities, particularly around delivering EV chargers, energy storage via sun solar panels, always great stuff at sporting stadiums and car parks. So please tell us more about this new venture that I'm kind of working with you on.
Yeah, well, I've gone back into energy because the market shifted. When I went to ICI in
Mm,
1996, they were a petrochemical based business, and I said, "Look, what about renewables?" And they just laughed at me. And then 10 years ago, I did some programs with some rugby clubs and golf clubs where some of them were able to take advantage, but it was more about, have you got the money to do it?
mm.
Or have you got, are you an evangelical, tree hugger? I've been called in the past, but actually, my mum and dad told me this when they were at university back in the 70s, 60s. We knew that we were killing the planet with the amount of carbon that we're making. So Trump's still coming out saying that it's a myth. It's horrible, and it's an untruth, and it's a lie.
Mm,
We know that animals and plants are being destroyed. So
we do.
we need to do something about it. But back to the business, it's now more expensive to stay on dirty fuel than it is to move to dark green or green energy. So the world's flipped over. It used to be a luxury and expensive to go and
Yeah.
sort yourself out with, heat pumps or solar panels or batteries or wind.
Mm,
Whereas now your energy will be cheaper if you do. So my opportunity there I'm a bit like a fullback playing behind the best pack there's ever been.
mm.
I've got Jonah Lomu playing for me. I've got Johnny Wilkinson playing. I've got, if you like, the tools I've got at my disposal now when it comes to green tech are amazing. All I've got to do is tell people about it and say, look, do you want to reduce the cost of your energy at the same time as helping to reduce carbon footprint?
Yes.
All right, let me know. And so we can do that for every business we come across, every school, every farmer, and then we're working on the model for every household as well. So
Absolutely.
I'm in a really good place because I've tried to do this for about 20 years. And finally, the technology and the relationships have come back. And the people that I'm working with here, they've been doing it for 20 years.
Mm,
And now they're inundated with work. The conversation around this boardroom is we need more installers because, and that's great, isn't it? That we
that's good.
finally, it's not just about a choice between money and maybe doing the right thing for your grandkids. It's the same choice. Do the right thing for your grandkids and you and your business and talk to the right people because, like ever, there are sharks swimming around. There are
Oh,
dodgy people who will sell you a pup and take the cash. And that's the hardest thing about life after rugby is how do you find the people to trust? So it's sort of taken me a long time and the cost of energy has gone up and the cost of batteries has come down. So all of a sudden
mm,
people are more interested. So yeah, every day I'm talking to people on the computer or in person saying, look, let me show you how we can save you money and help save the planet, inspire your staff, etc., etc. So that's what I do. I'm also a qualified performance coach. Guess what? So I love using science and applied mathematics to help people understand themselves. It's called emotional intelligence. So don't think that everybody looks at the world the same way that you do. You need to
exactly.
understand what they care about, what matters, and then if you can shift how you communicate, if you can understand what's important to them, well, you can work together. So
You can indeed.
it's not more complicated than that. But if you leave your ego behind and accept that life's more fun working with other clever people who are maybe better than you at things, and you just delegate to them and they delegate to you, it's a bit like that rugby idea. Jono couldn't have kicked the goal, but I couldn't have won the line out or the scrum. So it's just looking after each other and playing smart.
Absolutely right. And I'm working with a football agent at the moment, opening doors at football clubs, as you do, as I do as well. And I've tasked him with getting this documentation out around all these EV charges and the green world out to the football clubs. So I've got a brochure now, which I've slightly updated with my details, giving it to the football agent, and he's going off with glory, going around trying to open up doors with it. So I'm hoping we should have something soon from that. Let's see.
It's when, not if, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now that when people start realizing the guy next door's done it and that business has done it, why haven't I?
They all talk about it then, don't
It's
they? They
just a
all come
question
hold
of
this
when.
weekend.
So, anyone that's interested wants what we basically do is provide indicative. This is your situation, and you don't have to do. We're not going to charge you for it. It's just
Mm.
ideally, here's 2 or 3 things you should do, and it's going to make you better off. But that's
Yeah,
that's cool, isn't it? It's just being part of the right crew again,
it is being
and
part of the
having
right
passion
crew.
for what you're doing.
And what I said to him as well as a selling point, I say, look, just say that you store the energy. It will give the club all the energy they need for match days on a Saturday or midweek, power everything, and there will be energy left over. And I said, look, there's a chance here for those football clubs to actually support their sponsors, selling back what's left to those sponsors at a very vastly reduced rate. So you're then supporting your sponsors as well as the sponsors are supporting the club. So it works both ways and helps keep those sponsors on board, of course, as well. So he's got
Yeah,
away with that message, and we'll see.
it's got to work for everybody. We will
That's
do passion projects because we love our sport, but it's much easier if the FD says that was a great decision. Let's
Yep.
let's put more money into the football club, golf club, rugby club because we're getting more back for it.
Yeah.
And it's just about understanding what everybody needs, really.
Absolutely right. And this show, of course, is called it a guided missile.
Mm.
And I read about this when I did the research. Well, it's a fantastic story. Tell us about this and your message here with the guided missile. Because when I read it, I thought, wow, this is incredible. What a story.
Yeah, I was lucky. When I went to work at ICI back in 1996, I had the job of assessing all of their learning resources to try and make learning effective for all the people, like 50,000 people that were working there. So I had a cool job as a kid. Used to fly me around to go and give speeches.
Nice.
Idiots, but I loved it. And
Yes.
one of the videos I found was John Cleese talking. You can find it on YouTube now. It's Gordon the Guided Missile.
That's it.
And it's basically about Gordon. He's got one job in his life. His job is to go off and hit that target over there. And that's his definition of success. He's got to try and land on that target. So he sets off, but he's not the brightest, old Gordon, right? But what he does do, he says, right, how am I getting on, lads? And he sends a signal back to base saying, I've set off. How am I getting on? He said, oh, you're a bit high, Gordon, and you're a bit too far to the left. So Gordon, every 30 seconds, he sort of sends back this message saying, how am I getting on? You're a bit too high, you're a bit too low, you're a bit too far, you need to go that way. So eventually Gordon asks these questions all the way there, and then he effectively lands and blows up his target. So he does his job. And so the moral of the story is that even if you don't know everything, if you're prepared to ask the question and say, look, guys, help me out, how am I getting on? You can be steered back on track. So you might make
Indeed.
lots of little mistakes, but it's not a problem, and you still get to where you need to get to when you've got the right people giving you help. And so I just thought, what a simple message that is, because most of us,
Very simple.
when we don't know the answer, we blag it, fake it till you make it. We go, oh yeah, or we get stubborn about things and say, I can do this, I know what I'm doing, and then you end up making a mess of it because you haven't got the knowledge you needed or the experience, and so you end up, just missing the target. So the important thing is
Yeah.
that you ask people. There's a bloke that's coming into the room here. This is Steve, if you want to meet him. Yeah, well, I'm being told they need to lock the offices up. So,
Right, Stephen.
this is Steve, one of the blokes
We're,
who come and fix your solar and batteries.
we're nearly at the end, Stephen. So I won't be keeping Tim much
They're
longer.
waiting to lock the building up, that's all.
Okay, we won't be much longer. I can promise you that. That's
Okay.
a great message to get across, and I'll take that on board. They'd want to look the offices up, and to be fair, I learned
That's just reality. You got to roll with the punches, haven't you?
You got to roll with it, yeah.
Please.
It's
I
how
could do
it
it
goes
outside.
sometimes.
Could we do it outside?
Oh, I'm nearly finished, actually, to
All
be
right,
honest.
okay.
So let's end it. Let's just do the right thing here.
Okay.
It's a great story about the guided missile. I learned that story many years ago, and I always ask for help. Personally, I have to say.
Yeah,
It's the
I'm
best way.
learning. It's taken me a while, to be honest.
Forget the pride. It's worth asking. Anyway, as always, I'm going to wrap up now, Tim. As always on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show, we could talk forever too about your life as a professional rugby union player at the highest level, domestically, as an England international, British Lion and Irish Lions tour of South Africa, standing tall with the Barbarians, a business leader and motivational speaker. It's been a huge pleasure as always. And as always, the pleasure is all mine. And of course, the show's audience when this podcast is released on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show and the Lord Russell Baker YouTube channel. Thank you, Tim. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Tim Stimpson. Big round of applause going off here, as always. And do you mind just hanging on, Tim, just for a few seconds whilst I just wrap up?
Great.
We'll be very, very quick. This is the final episode of 2025, and I hope everyone has enjoyed the podcast shows this year. It also gives me great pleasure to wish everyone a truly wonderful Christmas, filled with love, warmth, and health. Plus, of course, wishing everyone a truly momentous new year in 2026 and a successful 2026 for all, one and all. So, more great shows to look forward to in 2026, where both sport and business combine together with exclusive shows on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show and the Elite Arena business and sports talk show on YouTube. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the inside. So until then, it's au revoir from him and au revoir from me.